Hello, everybody, and welcome to my podcast, Fear Fighter. I am your host, Shannan Mondor. Today's episode is a continuation of my series, You Are Not the Only One. I was brought forth to do this series because during my healing from my addiction of alcohol, there were so many times that the universe had brought me to silence. And during those times is when I learned so many things about myself, and I was guided. I was guided to talk openly about my past, my abuse, my addiction, and to speak my truth. From those moments of silence is when we learn, we grow, and then we teach and we help others. Today, I have a very special guest, Valerie Fraser. Welcome, Valerie.
Hello.
I'm so happy you're here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's excellent. Yeah, I'm so excited for everybody to hear your story. So my special guest, Val, I hope it's okay if I call you Val.
Sure.
Great. So she is here to discuss her journey from IVF to adoption, and now she is a very happy and joyful mother.
I am. Yes.
So Val, if you can share with everybody your story and how you were brought to your stillness, and then from there, what you learned from your stillness.
Okay. So I guess in the book that I'm part of a collaboration, and in my chapter of the book, I talk about when I was a teenager. I always knew that I wanted to be a mom, and I thought 4 kids, that would be great to have 4 kids. As I got older, the number of kids diminished as to how many I wanted. So when I met my husband and we got married, we talked about having kids, and we just sort of assumed that was going to be the next step in our marriage. We found out that I could not have my own kids. We did go through IVF. Which in and of itself is, if you're listening to this and you've been through IVF, you understand how invasive it can be. The emotions, just the doubt, questions. So we went through that and realized that I had a 2% chance of conceiving. So we had to decide, are we going to go through and do this? So we made the decision, 2% is better than nothing. So we went through the full process. And unfortunately, fortunately, I guess, it didn't take. So it was unsuccessful for us. The doctor did tell us that there was really no point in doing it again and putting the money out, because chances are I'm not going to get pregnant.
Do you have to be selected to do IVF, Val?
No, it's a choice.
Okay.
Like you go through your family doctor, who will put you in touch with the fertility doctor, and then discuss different options with the fertility doctor.
So it's quite a process in advance, right? Because you have to be on hormone therapy and and how was that for you emotionally at that time, going through all of that?
Well, right from the beginning, first they have to do, to get a little graphic, they do have to test to make sure your fallopian tubes aren't blocked. So they do shoot a dye into you. That I have a really high threshold for pain that dropped me. Like, the pain was excruciating. Wow. So once they decide that, okay, now you can go forward, then it's just a matter of talking with the doctor. And it's hormone therapy. I felt like a pincushion, because you have to give yourself needles every day. Then you have to go back to the fertility doctor. You have to get tested. They have to, get the sperm from my husband, and then they, have to inject it into me and see if it would take. And it didn't.
How long of a process was that?
It was, with all the medication I was on from start to finish, it was, testing my memory now, I want to say it was about 6 months
Okay.
from start to a negative pregnancy test. And the way, I'm not positive about the timing because we had a little bit of a blip with the doctor in medicine hat. Some of my results were lost.
Yeah, because
So we had to start.
This is good information
Yeah.
for people to know that are going through this right now, or you're
Mhm.
thinking about going with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's like there's different ways to conceive, and that is all up to the fertility doctor and the couple. So yeah, having all the drugs, it was emotional, and that like my stomach looked like I'd been punched. There were so many bruises just from the number of needles I had to inject. And then I remember at one point just going, I can't do this anymore. I can't do one more needle. And I had to ask my husband if he could inject me because I couldn't do it anymore. So yeah, it is very emotional.
Mm-hmm. So it didn't work for you. And then where does your story go from there?
So once it was determined that we were not going to, have a biological child, I should also point out that when we started going through this, I was 44. So I was, I guess, on the, I'm sorry, my daughter was born at 44. We started the process when I was 40 and a half, I like to say. So yes, I was on the older end, but there are also women that were like in their late 30s as well. So yeah, just a little sidebar that I was on the older spectrum. So yeah, once it was determined that we weren't going to, conceive and have biological children, then it was that moment of now what? We both wanted kids, but we're like, okay, now we have options. The doctor suggested there's adoption, there's egg donation, and we talked about both. And it was, it's kind of that moment where it's like, do you really want this? Like, do you really want to go down this path? And we both went, yeah, we do. We decided for different reasons not to go with egg donation. So we chose adoption. And it was, again, it's the emotional roller coaster, incredibly invasive. They ask you every question imaginable when you put your name forward to adopt. They want to know like criminal history, financial history, sexual history, you name it, they're going to ask you. So you need to be prepared. And I wasn't. I wasn't prepared for some of these questions. I was caught off guard. So if you're going through the process of adoption, if you know somebody who has done that before, I highly suggest you reach out. The questions can be a bit alarming, and even questions you think, wow, never ever thought of that. So yeah, we got on the list, and then it's a waiting game. So it can be anywhere from 1 year to 7 years to
Wow.
adopt.
That is
Yeah, it's long. So we put together a book. It's a family book. So, pictures of us, stories about our family, my siblings, Steve's siblings, our parents, how we were raised, just something that as a birth mom, being like, put yourself in their shoes and say, as a birth mom, you're going, I'm not equipped to raise this child. And I'm, I want somebody else to raise this child as their own. And of course, you want to know, what are they like? What are they going to do? So the book is as much information as possible about, who you are, what you do, traditions even. So we submitted that, and then it's like, okay, we're going to be selected. nope, we weren't selected. So it was probably 2.5 years and still nothing. And we did get a call. We thought that we had been selected by the birth mother. And then within 24 hours, we got a phone call that she decided not to go forward. So it was, emotional, because it's like, oh my goodness, like she chose us. Oh, we are going to have a child. And then it's like, nope, you're not.
Oh,
And
yeah, it's like that piece of candy right there, right?
yeah. And
Wait.
but you can't be angry, because it's like the birth mother, for whatever reason, she chose a different path. So, it's like, okay, now we're going to wait again. So Steve and I decided to go to Mexico. We just needed to get away from everybody, everything. And I think this was a moment of like sitting in silence, because we'd been waiting for so long. And I remember sitting in Mexico and thinking, do I want to keep doing this? It can my emotions, keep, back and forth and up and down, and the question, what if, maybe, and as each year ticked by, it's like, oh my God, and I'm getting older. Do I want to be a first-time mom at 50? And all these questions coming up, and it's like, I do, like, I still want to. And it's going back home, back when we got back to Medicine Hat, it's like, okay, so we're going to keep going the path. And I think it was within a week, the phone rang, and it was the phone call. And we had 24 hours to decide what we wanted to do. So we were like, yes. So the next day, off we went to Calgary and met the birth mom. And yeah, it was emotional.
I bet it was. So question,
Yeah.
the moment you got that phone call and you knew that you were going to be bringing your brand new baby girl home, how
Yeah.
long it was, did you have to prepare with the crib, diapers, clothes? Do you know what?
So
That would have been like, what?
So we got the phone call, and it was like, whoa, okay. But the birth mom wasn't due for another, I think it was about 6 weeks.
Okay.
So we're like, oh, we have 6 weeks. So, I reached out to my sister who has 3 kids, and, she gave me a crib, and we started collecting a few things. But our daughter was born early. So she was 3 weeks early. So we were completely unprepared. She was born in Calgary, so we drove up to Calgary. We did not have a car seat. We didn't have a stroller. We didn't have diapers. We were just unprepared. So yeah, it was, we get to the hospital. It's like, wow, we have nothing. And I grew up in Calgary, so I do have, a lot of my friends are still there. And we stayed with a friend of ours, and they were amazing. They have 2 kids of their own, and helped us. We got a car seat. They helped us get the car seat in. They bought stuff for us, and by the time we got home, we had things to get by for a few weeks, and then it was go out and purchase a whole lot of baby things.
I know with me personally that I wouldn't have that trusting feeling of knowing that I had that baby until the baby was actually in my arms and at home. So it would have been that waiting period for me from that phone call right up until bringing that baby home and all of the paperwork being signed. How did you handle all of that? And because that to me would probably be the most nerve-wracking, because I would have been scared that baby would have been taken away. So tell me about that whole emotional roller coaster and just having that security, both you and your husband.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting point. And it's like, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a point in the adoption that is, when you get the phone call, it is a bit surreal. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. So, in 6 weeks, I'm going to be a mom. Whoa, like that's a lot anyhow. But then it's like, it's not like being pregnant and you can touch your belly and go, yep, there she is. It's like, you've never you felt this baby, you don't even know. So when we got to the hospital, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of legalities involved. Once you get to the hospital, we were fortunate that by the time Brown was born, it was, I think she was maybe 5 hours old when we got to the hospital. So, a newbie, but when you are adopting, there's protocol to follow. So there's lawyers involved, there's social workers involved. It can be very clinical, but at the same time, the emotions are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So paperwork has to be signed. When we took her home, legally, she still was not ours.
Right.
So there is a 10-day window where the mother can change her mind or the father can change their mind. So for 10 days, you're loving on this baby and you're going, oh my God, like her mind could change.
Yeah.
And so every time the phone rang, I think like I froze. And it's like, oh my God, it's a phone call. It's a phone call. And like Steve and I were like, we're counting down the days. Okay, 8, 7, and just dreading a phone call. And thank God, within, at day 11, it's like, you can breathe. And I remember like holding my daughter at like 2 days old, and I'm looking at her going, like, how is it like you're right here, right now? But in 24 hours, I could get a call. In 1 hour, I can get a call and you're taken away. So yeah, the 10 days is excruciating. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm so happy that everything worked out for you, but I could not imagine going through that,
Yeah.
what you and your husband went through. Yeah, just in case it went the other way, like that would have
Yeah.
that would have ripped your spirit.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, unfortunately it has happened. And
yeah,
I mean, we were blessed. It didn't happen. And then, she's still not legally ours until everything goes through the courts. Her name is not ours. When we brought her home, she had the birth mom's name, because legally she wasn't ours. In our heart, she was ours 150,000%. But the courts didn't see it that way until all the paperwork is done. And then I think it was June 10th of 2010, because she was born in February. So I think it was June 10th, we got all the paperwork from the courts. Everything was done.
was she named Bronwyn by you and your husband?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so after
Yeah.
everything was said and done, then you could officially name her your name.
We did name her at the hospital. We couldn't,
Okay.
but it wasn't legal.
Okay.
It wasn't legal. Yeah. But you file paperwork and it's like, this is the baby's name. At the hospital, we do have to name her. Like,
Okay.
you have time to name her. It's just like a birth certificate. You need to
Okay.
give them the name. So, but it wasn't legally her name till we got all the paperwork.
Okay. Now that you look back at that time of your life and where you are now, and she's turned into a little teenager, what is it that you want other people to know about your journey? Out of
Wow.
everything that you've learned, there's going to be so many learning experiences.
Yeah.
But somebody is going through this right now, and you've learned so much. And what is it the biggest thing that you want to teach people, that you feel people need to know regarding this whole experience?
Wow. Well, I would say whether you're going
There
through,
could be many, Val,
yeah,
name
I
them
mean,
all off.
whether you're going through IVF or you finished that and now you're moving into adoption, or you're just deciding on adoption, or you've decided on a surrogate, whatever you choose to do, I would say, like, the lesson is in your heart. You need to ask yourself, is it a journey I want to go on? Because it is, I'm not going to lie, it's not an easy journey, but it is the most fulfilling end I have ever had. The Oh, sorry.
Well, that's okay. Like, absolutely. It's okay to be vulnerable. That's where
Sorry.
we find our strength. No, you're doing amazing. You are a strong woman.
Like when I think like we've had her for 13 years now.
Mhm.
So it's just like I had people ask me really weird questions. Like one of them I remember that just really hit was, well, what's it going to be like raising somebody else's child? And I'm like, she's not somebody else's child, she's mine.
Yeah.
You know, whether she was born and whether she grew in my belly or in my heart, it doesn't matter. I'm raising our daughter, not somebody else's. Um, and it's, I was asked, well, how can you love a baby that's not yours? Like biologically, it's like, wow, like that's, at first I thought, what an offensive question. But then I thought, okay, where is it coming from? Like they don't understand it. And it's when you have a baby, whether it's biological, surrogate, adoption, the love is unreal. And the love that I have for her is like it's hard to as a parent, you get it.
Yeah,
Anyone who's got a child,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, going through the journey is when you're going through it, just lean on your partner is all I can say. Be vulnerable with them and reach out to somebody who's been through it, because there are things that happen where you go, is that normal? Questions you have, and it's like, oh, is that normal? Like, should I feel this way? There's no right or wrong way to feel. The emotions are going to be all over the board, but it's just reach out to somebody that you can talk to, because it can be tough.
So when you say reach out to somebody, is there a lot of support out there, do you feel?
There isn't, and 13 years ago there was even less. Adoption agencies do their best, I understand that, but there's not a lot of support. um, it's a business like any other business, but there's not a lot on the emotional side. Going through IVF, it's very clinical. It's very clinical. The emotion side isn't there. I mean, that the doctors aren't there to help you emotionally. They're there to help you medically, and they do a fantastic job. But there's not a lot of support. And after going through this, I started looking around. I remember saying to my husband, why is there not a support system? This is tough. Like they have support systems in place, if, for alcoholism, drug addiction, not that there's a ton, but it's out there, and it's promoted. And it's almost like going through, fertility treatments or adoption. It's like, you can't tell anyone,
Yeah.
because it's not the norm, I guess. It's more so than ever, but there's still a long way to go before people start talking honestly and openly about it. And that women start supporting each other on this, and even like men,
Right.
you know men, like same-sex couples, they may be going through surrogacy. It's still hard, it's emotional. And I just like, my goal is to be that support system, to maybe put together a group where we can support each other. Because I mean, afterwards, there's questions from your child, as to, the adoption, like their biological parents, a lot of questions, and some of them are really, really hard to navigate.
And that was my biggest thing why I wanted to do this podcast, this particular series, is because so many people go through so many different circumstances, and more and more people are starting to come forth and talk. And like your experience, how many other people are you going to be helping now? And that's the thing. We need to start getting vulnerable. We need to start thinking about our emotions. And that's what's going to bring us together as one, is just by helping each other. Because like, I know within my heart of all hearts is, we are here for a purpose, and it is to and grow and to have all these experiences and for us to teach each other.
Absolutely.
And like, I'm just so glad that I am doing my podcast, and I'm so glad that I had my moment of stillness, which this was all brought forward. And it's amazing. I love
Yeah.
this. I love it. So where are you now, Val? You wrote a book. Okay, you got to put that book up on your screen, because I want everybody to see this on YouTube or on Facebook. So From the Ashes, She is Ignited. And so
Yes.
you are in collaboration with these other women that have gone through, different circumstances.
Yeah.
And so it's, in this book, you got to tell your story. Tell us a little bit about the book, where you are now, where you want to go, and just, tell us about
Okay.
more present.
So the book here, it's a collaboration with, like you said, with other women that have been through different circumstances, and just, how they got through it, what they did, and what brought them to the end, and what they're doing now. And it was a lady, Louisa Harridge, out of the UK. She is actually a domestic violence survivor, and she needed to tell her story. And she thought, there's other women out there that I can help. And that's how it came to be. So yeah, I was connected with her, and it became part of this book, and I told my story. It was amazing to get it out.
Isn't it freeing? Oh my gosh. Like,
yes.
After I wrote my book, I had so many tears and emotions and anger.
Yes.
Oh, that anger, I'll tell you. But let me tell you, it was the most freeing thing I have ever done. Totally changed my life forever. And so I totally can relate to what you have gone through. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And it's like writing the book, it's like, wow, I can't believe all these things started coming back to me. It's like, oh, I haven't thought about that in 10 years. I know, but it was back there somewhere, and it all came forward. So now, like I said, our daughter's 13. Welcome to the teenage years. She's phenomenal. She's brilliant. She's kind, she's generous. We just adore her to pieces. But yeah, out of this, it's like, how can I help other women? And it's been actually almost exactly a year since I was part of this book. And still in my mind, it's like, how can I help other women? And I've offered, women I know that are going through it, offered, if you want to talk, I'm here. So it's kind of been in an informal kind of way. But yeah, I guess my goal really is to be that support for them. And that, I don't want to say, oh yeah, I get what you're going through, because their emotions are different than what mine were then. Yeah, we all have fears, we all, have anger, but to what level, and how are they going to deal with that? But just to let them know that all the emotions you're feeling is normal.
Right.
There's nothing abnormal about being flat out pissed off about the situation. It's normal. And it just, to let them know that it's also normal to want to go, I'm done, I'm out, I'm done. But it's, how you're going to.
Okay. And for them to know that is okay. That is okay.
Because I remember points where I was angry, and it's like, why am I angry? And I said, oh, well, I can't be. But I had nobody to talk to about it. And I didn't have, another female that, said, look, I went through that. It's absolutely normal. Like, let's talk about it. And also that those emotions can come out rather than just sitting in. So it's, and that's being on this podcast. I'm really grateful that you had me. because your listeners, if you're out there, I mean, my information, you know, are you going to, my
Yeah, and
information?
at the information at the bottom on my podcast, there's going
Okay.
to be your bio in there. It's going to be all the information that you relate to me. And if people want to reach out to you through email, through Facebook, whatever, all that's going to be there
Yes.
on Instagram, Valerie. It's all going to be
Yeah.
there. There, the title of your book is going to be in there. So if anybody wants to get a hold of Valerie at any point in time, all the information is going to be there and available. So
Yeah.
looking at me like you
And
might be on your next journey coming up here, my
yeah.
dear. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
then with the book, like there's so many different stories about, you know, what the women went through. So there's also the link to purchase the book, like everything from, you know, the loss of a child, from childhood cancer to domestic violence, to, you know, suicide. It's in there, and I'll tell you, some of those stories are, I had to put the book down a few times ago. Whew, I need to regroup here.
yeah. Well, Val, I
Yeah.
want to thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank
being a
you.
part of my podcast. You are going to help so many people out there, and I'm so glad everything worked out for you. And now you can have your fun years, teenage years with your daughter.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I will pray for you and your husband on that, because I have my teenagers
Thank you.
too. So yes,
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here, Shannon. That's fantastic.
you are so welcome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being a guest and saying yes. So yeah, but like I said, anybody who wants to get in touch with Val, definitely look at the notes in the podcast. And thank you so much, Val.
Thanks, Shannon.